expressed her frustration about feeling like an outsider in her own marriage, or when Janelle candidly in interviews revealed how hard it was to fight for Cody's attention and Christine. She finally admitted, insisting that the favoritism was more than a matter of hurt feelings. It was a breaker of deals. The show did not shy away from those tensions. In fact, there were some episodes that highlighted fiery exchanges and emotional confrontations between Cody and his wives. You could see the resentment simmering beneath the surface. It wasn't a matter of small quibbles. This was a family struggling with internal wounds that did not heal. The space between Cody and the wives was not merely physical distance, it was emotional banishment. This tension formed the foundation for the more explosive confrontations we would subsequently observe. It's one thing to keep tension behind closed doors, but when it's laid bare for the world to see, it magnifies the pain and the schism. The Brown family began to feel less like a cohesive unit and more like a broken group, fighting to cling to what was remaining. So, given that history, it's not so surprising how Cody's favoritism towards Robin wasn't simply about personal taste. It was the trigger for a family drama none of them could disregard. And believe me, it only got uglier from there. All right, friends, now that we've established the complicated dynamics of the Brown family, it's time to get real about the emotional consequences. And in all honesty, it's tragic. The manner in which Mary, Janelle, and Christine all reacted to Cody's overt favoritism towards Robin shows just how profound the fissures were within this family. These women weren't just relegated to the sidelines. They felt hurt, betrayed, and in some instances, altogether excluded. Let's take Mary for starters. She'd been with Cody the longest, so when favoritism towards Robin began becoming apparent, it hit Mary hard. In some episodes, Mary portrayed moments where you could clearly see her try not to lose her temper. One of the strongest scenes was when she spoke of feeling like she was losing her position in the family she'd constructed years and years ago. It wasn't jealousy. It was this intense feeling of loneliness. She was coping with the fact that Cody's interest and affection were diverting away from her, and that pain was evident in her eyes. Mary's withdrawal was not only physical. She appeared to emotionally be withdrawing for the purpose of safeguarding herself from continuous hurt. And then there is Janelle. Janelle would frequently attempt to be the mediator, attempting to keep the family united despite tension. But you can look at her interviews and see how drained that job was for her. She spoke of how much she wanted to keep things peaceful and feel trapped in the middle, particularly when the favoritism became too prevalent to deny. There were moments when Janelle was frustrated that her attempts to keep things equal were not yielding fruit, and the family was breaking apart. Anyway, you can see her in the middle of trying to remain loyal to Cody and trying to figure out who she is as a person. That emotional tug-of-war really wore on her mental health. Christine's is probably the most dramatic scenario. As opposed to Mary and Janelle, Christine did finally make the difficult decision to distance herself from the family clique. Her departure wasn't abrupt. It was the culmination of feelings of neglect and resentment that had been building over Cody's favoritism of Robin. In one open interview, Christine discussed how being overshadowed by Robin made her feel invisible, and that burden became too heavy. She likened feeling betrayed and emotionally drained, and that caused her to distance herself not only from Cody, but the entire family dynamic. Her leaving was a loud notice that things were coming apart in a way that couldn't be dismissed. These cracks within the wives didn't just extend to their relationships with Cody, they rippled across the whole family's emotional well-being. The Brown family, once close and tight-knit, became a family fighting deep emotional wounds. Disputes and tension weren't simply about ordinary disagreements. They were bred out of pain, loss, and the adversity of dealing with such an off-balance love situation. Seeing these women deal with their pain, you can't help but pity them. They're stuck in a toxic cycle of loyalty, love, and bitterness that's tearing them apart. This emotional aftermath didn't remain internalized. It overflowed into the public eye, coming under the pressure and scrutiny of fans and media alike. The heartache these women endured reminds us just how convoluted and delicate family love can be, particularly in a polygamous arrangement where sentiments of favoritism and abandonment have a way of swiftly feeding into family-wide strife. Therefore, as we observe Mary's passive withdrawal, Janelle's fatigue-fueled peacekeeping, and Christine's final decision to leave, it becomes evident the emotional damage to this family ran more than merely surface-level drama. It was intense, uncut, and authentic. And the ramifications, well, they only escalated further as the narrative progressed. Now, let's shine the light on Kody Brown, the protagonist in the middle of this emotional maelstrom. Viewing Kody's experience, it's evident he's in the midst of a whirlwind of guilt, rage, and denial that's ripping him from the inside out. You get the sense he's overwhelmed by the accusations from his wives and the public, and that struggle to take responsibility for what's happening is fueling a lot of his frustration. One thing that stands out is how defensive Kody becomes when confronted with the growing family tensions, especially during those tell-all interviews. His reactions can feel raw and honestly pretty explosive. Rather than opening up and taking responsibility for the hurt this favoritism has left him, he frequently pulls out his anger. He is often furious at the wives, sometimes at the cameras, and sometimes even at himself. That anger is not entirely about the situation, though. It appears to be a shield to keep some of the guilt and shame from seeping in. You can observe in such episodes as the tell-all where tensions run high that Kody's anger overflows and he comes very close to driving all of them away with his bitter words and temper flares. What makes it all more complicated is Kody's fixation on Robyn. On the one hand, Robyn is the individual whom he loves and relies on, his lifeline amidst this turbulent family life, but at the same time, that fixation insulates him from Meri, Janelle, and Christine even more. Robyn becomes sort of his sanctuary, and at the same time the epicenter of the deepest wedge between him and the rest of the family. Kody's preoccupation with Robyn is so acute that it blinds him to the hurt that it inflicts on the other wives, and that only makes the fractures within the family deeper. You can see this tension most obviously in moments when Kody attempts to stand up for Robyn. In public, sometimes writing off the other wives' feelings or accusations as irrational or hyperbolic. His failure to reconcile his love of Robyn with the needs and feelings of the other women continues to push the family apart, and rather than diffusing things, his defensive attitude tends to pour gasoline on the fire. Simultaneously, there are flashes where you feel Kody's conflict on the inside. He's not only mad at other people, he's also mad at himself. There are scenes of him grappling with guilt about the collapse of the family, but that guilt doesn't issue in healing. Rather, it becomes wrapped together with his pride and denial, so that he can't admit fault or make actual reconciliation. So Kody's tale is not entirely about favoritism. It's about a man struggling to manage overwhelming emotions caught between love, guilt, and anger. His obsession with Robyn grounds him, but also isolates him, and those two forces together drive the Brown family's emotional collapse. How he does or does not deal with those feelings sets the tone for the entire family's disintegration, with no doubt that his inner conflict is one of the largest contributing factors to the Brown family's agonizing split. The public reactions to the Brown family meltdown landed harshly during those dramatic tell-all interviews and television spots that the fans couldn't help but discuss. These were anything but idle conversations. They were high-stakes, emotionally charged showdowns in which all Kody, Robyn, Meri, Janelle, and Christine had been bottling up at last burst out. And for Kody in particular, these tell-alls became a war zone. Kody's public outbursts of emotion on these tell-alls didn't merely show his hurt. They also caused ripples with the viewers at home. Rather than soothing the waters, his defensiveness and hostility tended to leave him seeming aloof, even combative. You could understand that he was frustrated, lashing back when questioned regarding favoritism or how he was allowing things to grow apart from his other wives. These unfiltered moments, although human and authentic, also created an image of a dysfunctional family airing their issues publicly, rather than resolving them in private. The media didn't hold back either. Reality TV thrives on drama, and the Brown family struggles quickly became headline fodder. Every explosive interview clip, every tearful confession, and every sharp retort was amplified on social media and entertainment news. This constant spotlight magnified the cracks in the family's foundation, making private pain feel like a public spectacle. It wasn't just the fans watching, it was the world witnessing and making judgments from those moments of tension and vulnerability. What is truly remarkable is how these on-camera confrontations really seem to distance Meri, Janelle, and Christine even more. Observing their anguish play out on television wasn't pleasant, and the manner in which Kody at times reacted only served to reinforce their sense of isolation and betrayal. Rather than bringing the family closer together, These interviews tended to bring out the very schisms they had caused. Mary's remove became more marked. Janelle's attempts to maintain peace appeared strained and depleted, and Christine's ultimate leave-taking seemed all but inevitable against this backdrop of public strife. The tell-alls didn't merely reveal family soap opera, they framed the narrative for everyone beyond the Brown family. The public witnessed a family fighting to keep itself intact while exposing its sores on national television with Cody's emotional roller coaster at the eye of the storm. Such moments revealed the way exposure in the public can be a double-sided sword. It presents an opportunity to narrate your perspective, but similarly has the potential to dig deeper the very wounds you're struggling to cure. Ultimately, the media coverage not only documented the Brown family dysfunction, but it amplified it as well, making the cracks more difficult to overlook and the road to reconciliation more difficult. When we take a step back and view the Brown family saga, it's impossible not to appreciate how complex life can be when you're dealing with multiple relationships within one household. Polygamy is not simply having multiple spouses. It's all about balancing constantly love, loyalty, and power. Things that are already awkward in any marriage, amplified multiple times over. The Browns present us with a pretty raw, real picture of how hard that can be. Underpinning their battles is something more than just the daily struggles. The family has endured huge pain, including the loss of a son, a trauma no family should have to endure. That sort of heartbreak inflicts wounds difficult to mend and adds layers of grief and tension onto already strained relationships. There is no doubt that unresolved pain such as this doesn't only hurt individual members, it radiates throughout the entire family, making forgiveness and reconciliation all the more difficult to achieve. What's tragic is that the Brown family's deterioration isn't only about courtly breakups or exiting mutual houses. The actual crack is emotional and symbolic. It's about shattering trust, severed bonds, and shattered identities. If you look at how Mary, Janelle, and Christine have moved away, not only physically but also emotionally, you understand that the damage is far beyond what can be revealed by cameras. It's the unseen wounds, the silence among family members, and the oppressive burden of bitterness that tells the true story. So, while reality television exposes the drama and the tabloids, there is a human price tag attached to it. These are individuals grappling with complex emotions, messy allegiances, and painful grief. It's a reminder that off the cameras, families such as the Browns are hurting in very real ways, and that's something to consider the next time we see their saga play out. At the heart of this entire family maelstrom is Cody's all-consuming passion for Robin. It's apparent that his fixation has been his own downfall and the catalyst that's driven the Browns apart. Although his passion for Robin may be the only thing that makes sense in a world gone mad, it also distracts him from the hurt it inflicts on the rest of his family. That singular intensity drove wedges deeper still, opening old wounds into fresh sores and driving Mary, Janelle, and Christine further away. This is a tale about far more than any one man or any one marriage. It's love and betrayal, loyalty betrayed by resentment, and a family fighting to cling to what is left. Watching the Browns, you can't help but be reminded of that broken bond. It's raw, heartbreaking, and painfully real. I want to hear from you. What do you think will happen next for Cody, Robin, and the rest of the Browns? Will they ever discover a path back to one another? Or will this be the start of it all ending? Leave your comments in the field below. And if you're looking for more real no-holds-barred sister wives tales, be sure to subscribe to